What's up guys, it's Ian here, back today with another video, and today I'm here to give you a tutorial on how to perform the loading pin curl. Since trying out this exercise, this has actually been one of my favorite curl variations. You'd really have to try it out to understand it, but it does put a ton of tension on the bicep without needing to use that much weight. The stimulus for the bicep is pretty high, without tiring out your whole body. This is going to allow you to sustain a higher volume of training and dedicate more energy towards other exercises while still generating a good quality training effect for the biceps. Let's talk about the setup. First of all, you need a loading pin. Second, you're going to need a carabiner to attach to the loading pin and as many plates as you want to slot onto the loading pin. If you don't own a loading pin or carabiners, you might want to experiment with just a rope and tie a rope to a weighted object that can be suspended at least a couple feet beneath a stable handle. This is going to basically generate the same effect as if you had a loading pin, but the loading pin is pretty convenient. It's a nice plate accepting object that you can just hook a carabiner onto, hook the handle onto the carabiner, and get to curling. In this case, you can see me trying out the exercise with a few different setups. In both setups, I have the loading pin with a plate on it. In one of the setups, I have a carabiner hooked to the loading pin and then two individual handles each carabinered onto the big carabiner. In the second condition, I have those same handles, but instead of each having their own individual carabiners, both of the handles are on a small carabiner connected to the larger carabiner. I thought both of these setups were fine, but they did leave something to be desired, so I pulled out my trusty copper pipe. Here I'm holding up some Velcro loop closures. These actually come with bar pads. It's marketed as a bar pad. Most people use them as hip thrust pads. That's where I got these Velcro strap things from. They come free with those bar pads, and I looped together two of them in a figure 8 pattern. I combined those with my trusty copper pipe. You may have seen this copper pipe featured in some of my other videos. 3 fun exercises with a copper pipe and a full loop band. I set up the second condition by taking my large carabiner and looping my figure 8 daisy chain of Velcro straps onto the larger flat edge of the carabiner. The carabiner is asymmetrical. It has a larger end and a more tapered off kind of triangular pointy end. I like to put that narrower part of the carabiner on the loading pin and then sit the flat part of my Velcro strap on the wider part of the carabiner. This is good because it prevents the loading pin setup from tipping in either direction. I also like the broad strap of the Velcro strap because of how it integrates with the copper pipe. If you were to just put a narrow string on the copper pipe, it would have a much greater risk of tilting side to side. By having a slightly broader strap, at least 1 or more inches in width, you're able to really get a good purchase on that pipe and on the carabiner and prevent any tipping or unwanted movement in the system and really concentrate on the exercise. The loading pin is a versatile piece of equipment. Arguably, it's unnecessary. Arguably, you could just perform this exercise by tying a rope to a plate. The objective here is really just to get the weight hanging straight beneath a handle. So the loading pin functionally is just suspending a weight beneath your hands. Having the weight hanging beneath the hands as opposed to placed in the hands actually affects the biceps in a different way. I'm not completely sure on how the resistance curve differs in this exercise versus holding a weight in the hands, but it definitely has a pretty vicious peak contraction, and overall the mind muscle connection that I get from the loading pin curl is stronger for me than a dumbbell curl. You're not going to be able to use as much weight in this loading pin curl as you can in a barbell curl or a dumbbell curl, but the stimulus generated is very good, especially in relation to how much weight that you're using. In the video here, I'm just performing this exercise with the loading pin plus a 25-pound plate. The loading pin is roughly 8 pounds, so that puts this weight at only about 33 to 35 pounds, and I'm getting still a pretty good stimulus in the 10 to 20 repetition range. To put it in perspective, I can curl 30-pound dumbbells with pretty strict technique, so in terms of the stimulus to fatigue ratio, this loading pin curl generates a lot of stimulus with with a little bit of weight. You're not forced to use a lot of weight and expend extra energy that could be better devoted towards other exercises. Maybe you want to save your energy and spend it on the compound moves, spend it on your primary movements, whatever they might be, whether you're a power lifter, calisthenics athlete, bodybuilder. Maybe you want to spend more of your energy on some other exercises and slot in this loading pin curl as a very efficient, high stimulus to low fatigue exercise, just because you're able to generate such an intense effect at the bicep with relatively less weight than you would have to use in almost every other curling variation. Now that I've talked about the benefits of the exercise and the stimulus to fatigue ratio and the setup, let's talk about how to actually execute the exercise. When I'm doing these curls, I perform it a few different ways, but for the most part, I'm trying to keep my body pretty stable. You are going to lean forwards and back a little bit to kind of counterbalance that weight since you are holding it out in front of you. And then what I'm doing here is I'm using a firm grip, but I'm allowing my wrist to bend backwards. And really at the top of the exercise, I'm trying to really feel that peak contraction and hold it there for a second or so. So just use control as you perform the exercise. Allow those wrists to bend back and really feel that peak contraction at the top. It kind of feels the most natural to me to let the elbows come forwards as well a bit too. So you can see that my elbows are actually coming forwards as I perform this exercise, not in a way where I'm trying to swing up and generate a lot of force from the front delt or anything, but I'm just kind of squeezing the bicep and also allowing the elbows to come forwards a little bit using a firm hand position, but the wrists are bent backwards because you're holding an object and the weight is suspended directly beneath your hands. I'm just trying to give an example of what I'm thinking about when I'm positioning my wrists and elbows during the top half of this exercise. It might not look that intense, and it definitely doesn't look impressive due to the fact that so little weight is being used, but definitely try out this exercise for yourself. I feel like it does have a great stimulus to fatigue ratio. It is a very stimulative exercise, and you can see by the end of just my 4 sets of curls here that I have a pretty sickening pump. I definitely felt it. The 2 separate spongy grip handles at the beginning were fine. I wasn't really sure which handles to use, so I started out with those 2 individual handles, but in the end, I preferred the copper pipe greatly. It was my favorite handle by far, and it wasn't even close. I am a bit concerned that over time, as the Velcro weakens, it could open up. A good remedy to that could be that if you don't plan on using these Velcro straps for anything else, you could actually stitch them closed. So once you get it situated in the configuration that you want, you can stitch them in place so the Velcro really has no chance of going anywhere. You can combine them with a carabiner that has a wide flat edge and a pipe. Alternately, you could just go to any hardware store that has bulk straps and purchase a few lengths of bulk straps, make that figure 8, stitch them together, make sure that the stitching is good and the straps have enough tensile strength to support the amount of weight that you want to use, and then set up this setup. The loading pin is pretty cheap. If you're into home fitness, maybe you already own some plates. You really don't need to buy any dumbbells. You don't need an assortment of dumbbells. You don't need adjustable dumbbells. You can just use a pipe or even a sturdy wooden stick and a daisy chain of some straps or whatever sturdy strap-like material you find lying around your house. You don't need to go out and buy a bunch of stuff. If you don't want a loading pin, you can even rope a weight onto your handle like that. But the loading pin is a pretty versatile piece of equipment. It'll last you a long time. It's just a solid piece of metal. Mine is probably like 4 or 5 years old now. Either way, hopefully you found this video useful. If you have any questions, just comment down below. Share this video if you know anybody that you think might also benefit from it. And until next time, don't let anybody stop your gains.